So hey guys, how are you all? I hope you all are fine. So as you've seen in the thumbnail, today we are gonna see what if Naruto was in the after and married with Katara. It's a special movie. Now let's move on to the video. South Pole. A wandering figure shivered as he tried to walk in the snow. The wind was blowing and the falling snow was making it difficult to see more than a couple feet in front of him. His clothes were torn and burnt, meaning had managed to escape the Fire Nation troops. His boat had gotten lost in the storm and had landed on an iceberg. Shaking his head, his tail was wrapped around his midsection, trying to keep him warm. His flimsy shirt was poor covering. Making a decision, his body shifted into a fox, his coat a fiery red. Feeling a bit warmer with fur, he padded through the snow looking for a cave or some kind of shelter. He walked for hours, and even in his fox form, he was cold. Collapsing in the snow from exhaustion, he gave off a tired whimper. His legs were numb. Fortunately, the wind and falling snow had ceased, so he wouldn't be buried anytime soon. He felt his eyes closing when he heard a voice. "Come on, Katara, please." A male voice said in a whining fashion. "Not Fire Nation, I'm near a water tribe if I remember right," he thought, lifting his head to see a pair wearing blue parkas with white fur. "Sokka, over here. I think I found something," a female voice shouted. One of the figures leaning down to reveal a dark-skinned blue-eyed girl with brown hair. "Great, looks like we'll be having fox for dinner," he replied, only to get slugged in the gut. "Ow, what was that for? No one's having fox for dinner, Sokka," Katara scolded, slowly extending her mitten-covered hand to brush some snow off the fox's red coat. "Poor thing's practically frozen, which means killing it will end its suffering and give us something to eat," was Sokka's snide comeback, only to release a high-pitched wail, courtesy of Katara's foot connecting with his groin. "Then you stay out here and freeze to death," Katara fumed, carefully picking up the half-frozen fox. Wrapping it in her parka, she trudged back to the village. "Don't worry, little guy, I won't let my idiotic brother turn you into a meal," she whispered, blushing slightly as the fox nuzzled its head against her chest. "Just how long have you been wandering all alone out here?" Once back in the small village that was once the proud southern water tribe, Katara quickly headed for her tent, where she could properly tend to the fox. When she first saw the half-frozen vulpine, she remembered the stories her mother told her as a child. How a tribe of shape-shifting foxes called kitsune helped guide the avatar in mastering the four elements and keeping the world in balance. How they were able to change their forms and were masters of 3 of the elements, including fire. But 100 years ago, the Fire Nation began a campaign to exterminate the kitsune and the air nomads. With both races wiped out, no one could bring the Earth Kingdom and Water Tribes together to end the war started by Fire Lord Sazan. For the last century, there were rumors that small numbers of kitsune had survived the slaughter of their people and were hiding out in the Earth Kingdom, but none of the rumors were ever confirmed. Looking down her parka, Katara smiled warmly, seeing that her passenger was comfortably sleeping and no longer shivering from the cold. She couldn't understand why, but for some reason she felt drawn to this fox, as if it was her destiny to find him in the snow. Deciding to ponder those thoughts later, Katara carefully deposited her new furry friend on her bedroll of furs. The subtle chill and sudden jostling woke him up, but he didn't seem to have the strength to stand properly. "You must be starving after walking around in the snow for so long," she said, searching her room for her stash of smoked salmon and fruit she kept for emergencies, or if she wanted something to snack on. Katara, well, that didn't take him too long, she huffed, placing a bowl of salmon in front of the fox. "There you go, little guy, now I have to deal with my idiot of a brother again." Sighing, she opened her tent flap, only to be greeted to an irate Sokka. "What now, Sokka? I can't believe you kicked me in the dangly bits just for some stupid fox," Sokka growled, his voice slightly higher than normal. "How would you like it if I kicked your dangly bits?" "I wouldn't know since I don't have any dangly bits. So since we're not having fox for dinner, why don't you go hunt a penguin or two?" she grouched, shoving her brother back. "You're lucky I'm not very good at waterbending or it'd bend you into a block of ice." "Fine, do what you want with the fox, see if I care," Sokka shouted, limping away from Katara's tent. "Why do girls have to be so stubborn?" "Jerk," she huffed, storming back inside her tent. Closing the tent flap, she found the fox sleeping once again in an empty bowl. "I shouldn't expect you to be walking around so soon after being out in that storm. Just what were you doing this far south?" Leaving the fox to rest and regain its strength, Katara left her tent to finish her chores, not knowing her grandmother, Gran had been discreetly watching. The bones have once again proven correct. There is now hope for this world, Gran thought with a deep sigh. "I trust my granddaughter's future to you, young kitsune." For the rest of the day, Sokka kept his distance from his sister and kept his mouth shut about eating her new pet. as he wasn't eager to get kicked in the gonads again. At dinner the fox seemed strong enough to join the villagers around the fire, keeping close to Katara for warmth and the extra food she gladly provided. It even rode on her shoulders when she went to relieve herself, not that she minded of course. She had formed a quick liking to the fox. Climbing into her bedroll for the night, she wasn't surprised to have her furry friend crawl in to snuggle up against her. "Good night, little fox," she whispered, getting a lick to her chin in return. "Hess, so cute." Southern Ocean. Over 100 miles away, a lone Fire Nation ship traversed the calm seas. Most of the crew were sleeping save for those who had night watch and a solitary individual standing on the balcony of the upmost deck. Amber eyes gazed out towards the horizon, hoping for an end to her search. She is none other than Azula, a banished princess by her father's order. "Azula, it's late. You should be in bed," came the sage advice from her uncle Iroh. "It's still a bit strange to have you give me advice when I never listened in the past, uncle. Why do you keep trying?" she asked, her gaze never leaving the horizon. "The answer is a simple one, my dear niece. We are family and I will always be here for you when you need me, even when you don't think you need my advice," Iroh explained, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Just don't tell anyone that I listened to you this time," she joked, heading back inside the ship to her bunk. Southern Water Tribe. Following morning, fighting consciousness, Katara's sleep-fogged mind slowly registered something pressed against her. She could feel the extra warmth of something bigger than the fox she fell asleep with. There was a hand wrapped around her back while another was resting at her hip. Peeling her eyes open, she saw a set of ocean blue eyes staring back at her. Realizing these eyes belonged to an unknown male, Katara was about to scream when a hand clamped her mouth shut. "Wait, please don't scream. Just let me explain." At her hesitant nod, the hand slowly lifted away from her mouth. "You might find this hard to believe, but I was the fox you fell asleep with last night. My people have the ability to change into foxes, but I was too weak after walking through yesterday's snowstorm." "You're a real kitsune," Katara exclaimed, spotting the fox ears on top of his head. "I can't believe it. I never thought I'd meet a kitsune in my life. I never believed the Fire Nation had wiped you all out. This is so exciting. So is it true you can bend more than one element? And the fact that you've had a guy in your bed all night means nothing." "Oh right. I guess I got a bit excited," she blushed. "Sorry. My name's Katara." "Yeah, I know. I heard you and your brother talking when you found me. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, by the way," he replied, noticing her curious gaze directed towards his ears. "You can touch them, my tail too if you want." "I don't mind. You have a tail too?" Katara squealed in excitement. "Katara, Gran wants to talk to you about your fox friend," Sokka said from outside the tent. "I'll be right there," she called back, getting out of bed to change clothes. "You better change back." Right," Naruto said, turning away as she shed her night clothes. Once changed, she picked up a transformed Naruto and hurried across the village to Gran's tent to find her preparing tea. "So has your kitsune friend shown you his human form?" Gran asked, pouring a third cup. "How do you know?" Katara questioned, setting Naruto on the ground. "Foxes don't normally have blue eyes, nor do they have red fur this far south," she smirked, as Naruto reverted to his human form, being no younger than Katara. "I see you are quite young for a kitsune. In a way it makes things less awkward. You didn't get a good look at me until I emerged from Katara's tent. But I get the feeling you knew about me a lot earlier," Naruto grumbled, plopping down on the furs on the ground. "And let me guess, you're going to invoke Water Tribe law for sleeping in Katara's bed. And yet you still slept with her knowing the consequences of your actions," Gran replied, sipping her tea. "What are you both talking about?" Katara asked, having no idea where this conversation was going. "According to Water Tribe law, you and I are engaged because we slept together, meaning once we reach marrying age we'll be husband and wife," Naruto growled, his tail swishing back and forth in agitation. "What? If you think that's bad, the only ways to nullify this arranged marriage is for one of us to die or already be engaged to someone else. But that still won't work because I'm the last kitsune." "Stupid clan restoration law," Naruto groused. "What's the clan restoration law?" Katara asked. "The Kitsune tribes created a law to prevent a clan from going extinct, in that the last member of said clan must take more than one wife to ensure the clan's survival," Gran explained, much to the ire of one kitsune. "You will both be married once Katara comes of age." "Don't I get a say in this?" Katara demanded. "Believe me, Katara, the last thing I want is to force you into this, especially since you just met me. But arranged marriages are nearly impossible to get out of. Plus my mother taught me to respect traditions, even though I apple the idea of arranged marriage. Naruto muttered the last part. And I can understand if you don't like the idea of multiple wives. That's not why I'm upset. I just didn't plan on getting married so soon. It's a huge shock right now. Though having to share a husband is a little odd, I fully intend to respect this marriage. It'll just take me some time to accept this, she replied sadly, reaching for her teacup. I just wish I could have learnt waterbending. Just as she was about to take a sip, the liquid suddenly froze. Peering into the cup, Katara nearly dropped it in surprise as the tea floated out in front of her face, where it went from froze cylinder to an arrow pointing at Naruto. You're a waterbender, Katara gasped, yelping as something cold touched her neck. Kitsune have had the ability to bend 3 elements since the time of the first avatar. But because we can fire bend, the Fire Nation demanded my people help fight their war. From what my parents told me, our elders refused, saying they were loyal to the Avatar and all 4 nations. The Fire Lord said we were all traitors and ordered our extermination. They used their overwhelming numbers to slaughter my grandparents and everyone in the village, Naruto explained, a stray tear sliding down his cheek. My parents and I were outside the village when the attack happened. My father sacrificed his life to keep the soldiers busy, so my mother and I could escape. But she was killed 8 years ago in an attack in the Earth Kingdom, and I've been wandering around the world ever since. I know how you feel. The Fire Nation took my mother's life when I was little. She did it protect me since I'm the last waterbender in the South Pole, Katara replied, looking down at her empty cup. Then you probably don't want to hear that I befriended the Fire Nation princess during my travels, Naruto mumbled. You were in the Fire Nation, she exclaimed, making his ears fold against his head in fear. What were you doing there? I was trying to kill the Fire Lord, but his daughter found me and hid me in her room. But when her father found out, he banished her for hiding an enemy of the Fire Nation. At least that's what I heard. I escaped about a year ago, so I have no idea where she is, he replied sheepishly. While I was with her, I managed to change her views on the world. She stopped thinking the Fire Nation is superior to the other nations, and her dreams of power and glory disappeared the more time we spent together. So would the princess be a potential wife? Gran asked, causing Naruto to blush. Well, we did talk about ending the war right before I escaped. So maybe, he cringed, wanting to change to his fox form. And we did discuss me having a wife from a different nation. I'll make you a deal. Teach me waterbending and I'll consider accepting her as my stepsister and co-wife. Once I meet her, Katara bargained with a stern expression. I was going to teach you anyway, so deal, Naruto affirmed, taking her hand and kissing the back of it, making her blush this time. The only downside I see to this is having Sokka for a brother-in-law. Naruto's introduction to the village would have gone smoothly had Sokka not objected in such a loud and obnoxious manner. When the situation was explained, he was less than pleased to hear some strange fox boy had been sleeping with his sister even if he was a kitsune. He then accuses Naruto of being a Fire Nation spy. When he learnt kitsune were able to firebend, Naruto's reaction would bury any doubt permanently. His nails changing into razor-sharp claws, he tackled Sokka to the snow with a hand around his neck and the other poised to strike from above. You listen and listen well, you little shit stain. My mother and father were mercilessly slaughtered by Fire Nation troops because my people wouldn't fight in the war with them. I would never in a million years spy for people who would butcher innocent people for not being born in Fire Nation territory, he snarled, forming an ice shard in his hand. Since I doubt you'll make that accusation again, let me remind you that there are people in the Fire Nation who hate this war as much as you do. Am I clear? Yeah, perfectly clear. I'm sorry I accused you of being a spy. Just don't hurt me, Sokka pleaded, not able to take his eyes off the potentially deadly icicle. I swear I was only looking out for my sister's safety like I promised our dad. Then I'm sorry too, Naruto whispered, releasing Sokka's throat and evaporating the ice shard. My mother was raped right before the Fire Nation soldiers killed her. And the worst part is that they were laughing and enjoying themselves. And yet there's someone in the Fire Nation woes my friend. Well, she's not in the Fire Nation anymore from what I know. Really? What happened to her? Sokka asked, massaging his throat. Doesn't really matter, but I'm not looking forward to when she finds me. Naruto shuddered, though not from the cold. Is she really that scary? Sokka asked doubtfully. Girls aren't that scary, are they? Katara, was your brother born retarded? Naruto asked his betrothed, inciting a shout of indignation from the teen. You have no idea, Katara replied, glad to see her brother humiliated. So when do we start waterbending lessons? After I get a change of clothes, Naruto answered, picking at the tattered remains of the rags that kept him from being completely exposed to the cold. "Unless you want me teaching you in my underwear, I'll just get you a clean pair of Sokka's clothes," she said, a light blush coloring her cheeks. In the weeks that followed, Katara had progressed exceptionally in her waterbending training, and her relationship with Naruto was at the point where close contact didn't feel awkward. Most times at dinner, Katara was found snuggling against him as she was enjoying being held in his arms, especially in bed. Despite this, the only other intimate contact they shared was the occasional kiss, and even then she was a bit shy about it. She was grateful Naruto never pushed the issue. It meant a great deal that he was willing to go slow with their relationship. A month after arriving at the South Pole, Naruto was starting to get the feeling that something important was about to happen. Like some part of his destiny was about to be revealed. One night, Gran had insisted Sokka take Katara and his future brother-in-law with him on his fishing trip in the morning, despite the boy's objections. "Look at it this way, Sokka, you'll be able to teach us how to catch a fish," Naruto joked, awing the kids with his firebending. "Fine, just be ready to go early. We've got a lot of distance to cover to get to the good fishing spots," Sokka grumbled and walked away. "I don't get why he's in a bad mood about tomorrow," Katara said, gazing back at her brother. "Probably doesn't want us making out in the canoe," Naruto mumbled, making her go red at the idea. "But it will be a good chance for you to practice your waterbending." The next morning, Katara awoke to find herself snuggling against her future husband, and she could honestly say this was something she could quickly get used to. Since the sun was just bleeding into the tent, she took this opportunity to study the man who shared her bed. His ears atop his head would twitch ever so often as if to bat away some annoyance. She had to confess that she found it hard to resist the urge to reach up and stroke the furry appendages. The more she watched them, the harder she had to restrain herself. Chewing on her lower lip, she carefully maneuvered herself so that her chest was next to his head. As if suddenly disturbed, Naruto rolled to his right, landing his face between her breasts, with his arms locked around her back, preventing her escape. She had found out the hard way that Naruto often did this in his sleep and was more than a little embarrassed at having his face nuzzling against her chest. But now, after numerous times of waking up like this, Katara didn't seem to mind anymore. She sometimes wondered what it'd feel like to have him nuzzle against her naked chest. "It's not like we won't be doing that stuff when we're married, and he did say he would wait for me to get comfortable before going any further in our relationship, so I guess it's okay if he sees my breasts," she thought, unraveling her breast bindings as carefully as she could, only to stop when she felt a pair of hands assisting her. Looking down, her gaze locked onto the blue eyes of her betrothed. "How long have you been awake?" she asked. "A few minutes ago when you started wiggling around," he answered, his fingers delving beneath her bindings to lightly stroke the underside of her breasts, causing her to flinch at the sudden contact. "Do you want me to stop?" "No, it's okay. I just wasn't expecting it," she replied, timidly taking one of his hands and placing it on her breast. "I trust you completely. Just tell me to stop if you feel uncomfortable," he whispered, nuzzling her neck with his lips as he gently kneaded the mammary in his hand. Sighing at the sudden wave of pleasure, Katara arched her neck to expose more skin to Naruto's lips. She even let him slice her bindings apart with his claws, leaving her topless. Her nipples hardened as if begging for his attention, which he deliberately avoided to tease her. She couldn't help but gasp as her other breast was enveloped by his warm mouth, his tongue stroking around her nipple as he lightly suckled on the spongy flesh. "Oh spirits," she moaned, wrapping her hands around his head to keep him from moving. "Don't stop. Katara, get out of bed. We have to get going soon," Sokka hollered from outside the tent, effectively breaking the intimate moment. "Well, be right out, jerk face," she seethed, releasing Naruto's head, wanting to waterbend her brother into a block of ice for the interruption. "That was wonderful, Naruto. I'm glad you were enjoying it, and we can always continue this tonight if you want," he replied, placing a gentle kiss on her lips. "I won't lie, I do want to see you naked and be intimate with you, but I would rather wait for you than to make you uncomfortable. I promise to go as slow as you want. That really means a lot to me, and I can safely say that when the time comes I won't hesitate to give myself to you," she whispered, hugging his head to her chest. "Even if it means having to share you with another woman. And I promise to love you both equally," he replied, caressing her breasts with his lips. "Perhaps we should continue, just to annoy Sokka some more. I think I could be persuaded to stay a while longer," she sighed, deciding she would go topless each night. "Naruto, you better not be getting too familiar with my sister," Sokka shouted, this time right outside their tent. "But it doesn't look like Sokka will let us," Katara grumbled, really tempted to turn Sokka into a living ice sculpture. "He was dropped on his head as a baby, wasn't he?" Naruto asked, flopping back on their bed, out on the ice pack. Icebergs slowly drift past the canoe as its 3 occupants letting the current carry them. Sokka sat in the bow with Naruto laying in the middle, with his head and legs draped over the sides and Katara in the aft. In between the two sat a bucket of water for any fish they caught. "It's not getting away from me this time," Sokka says. Naruto shakes his head. This is the 4th time Sokka has said that phrase. Thus far the bucket was still empty. "Both of you watch and learn how to properly catch a fish." Katara looks at Naruto before leaning over the edge of the canoe to see another fish and hesitantly removes her left glove. Taking a deep breath and drawing on her waterbending lessons, she begins to motion with her exposed hand. Slowly a globe of water containing the fish lifts from the water and hovers near the edge of the canoe. "Sokka, look," Katara says, trying to get her brother's attention. "Shhh," Sokka whispers. "Katara, you're going to scare the fish away," he says, raising his spear to strike. "I can already smell it cooking," he drools, licking his lips. Naruto motions towards the bucket and Katara puts the fish in it. After several more they have a dozen fish between the two of them. While Sokka is still focusing on his lone fish. "Sokka, we caught some." Katara tried again to gain his attention, catching one more. Sokka raises his spear to strike at the fish that had been taunting him. As he cocks his arm back, the spear shaft hits the blob of water and it bursts, drenching him, and the fish falls back into the sea. "Hey," Katara protests. Sokka shakes, an exasperated look on his face. "Ugh," he groans and glares at Katara. Sokka glares. "Why is it that every time you play with magic water I get soaked?" he demanded of his sister. Katara sighs. "It's not magic. It's waterbending. We've been over this before. It's, yeah, an ancient art unique to our culture." Sokka huffed, breaking into her speech. "Blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm just saying that if I had weird powers it'd keep my weirdness to myself." Naruto's ears flatten against his head. He sensed the change in Katara and winced at her tone of voice. "You're calling me weird," she growled. "I'm not the one who makes muscles at himself every time I see my reflection in the water. As much as I love hearing you both argue, how about focusing on those icebergs before they kill us?" Naruto exclaimed, bringing his extremities inside the canoe, just as a block of ice missed them by inches. That was too close for comfort. Grasping the sides, Katara and Sokka grab the oars and work frantically to keep the canoe between the icebergs. All 3 yell at several close calls. "Watch out," Katara yells. Go left," Naruto yells. "No one likes a middle seat driver," Sokka shouts back. The canoe threads its way through the ice pack, icebergs colliding all around them. Their safety margin dwindles with each time they manage to avoid getting crushed between colliding icebergs. Finally, the canoe is crushed when 3 icebergs collide at once. Naruto landing after leaping to one of the icebergs. Sokka under his arm and Katara slung over his shoulder. He sees that they are at the mercy of the currents, which is drawing them away from land. Katara rounds on Sokka. "You call that left?" Sokka glares right back at his sister. "You don't like my steering? Well, maybe you or Fox Boys should have waterbended us out of the ice." Naruto winces as he sees Katara's hand clench and knows this isn't going to be pretty. "So it's my fault," she snarls. Behind them, Naruto sees a large iceberg towering over them. "I knew I should have left you at home. Leave it to the girl to screw things up," Sokka grouched. Naruto palms his face and shakes his head. He peeks between his fingers and sees that his betrothed is letting her anger boil over. She points at her brother, not noticing the water around them churning wildly. This is bad, he thought, watching as his betrothed verbally lambasted her brother. "You are the most sexist, immature, nut-brained." Naruto watches as she gets increasingly agitated. The iceberg they are standing on begins to heave. He looks up as the huge iceberg begins to crack. Katara," he tries. "Ugh, I am embarrassed to be related to you," she continues. Her voice drops in volume. "But the edge is there. Ever since Mom died I've been doing all the work around camp, while you've been off playing soldier." Hearing the cracking ice, Sokka looks at the huge iceberg as the cracks gets larger. Katara," he says hesitantly and shoots Naruto a look to do something. "I even wash all the clothes. Have you ever smelled your dirty socks? Let me tell you something, it's not pleasant." "Katara, you need to calm down now," Naruto says, trying to defuse the situation. Sokka is frantic as he sees the looming iceberg. "Settle down." "No, that's it. I'm done helping you. From now on you're on your own," Katara shouts, and as she finishes screaming, the iceberg behind her shatters, sending large pieces falling into the water, pushing their slab of ice away. Naruto grabs Katara around the waist and sinks his clawed hand into the frozen block, desperately holding on until it settles. Sokka rams his boomerang in for purchase, meanwhile screaming his head off. "We're gonna die and it's Katara's fault." Naruto was tempted to send Sokka into the water with a tail strike, but resisted the urge. Once the water settles, the trio feels safe enough to relax their death grip on their anchors, in Katara's case her kitsune boyfriend. "Okay, you've gone from weird to freakish, Katara," Sokka deadpanned. "You mean I did that?" she asked in genuine surprise. "Yep, congratulations, Katara." "Shut up, Sokka," Naruto said, grasping Katara's waist a little tighter. "This is what I meant about bending being connected to your emotions." She looked sheepish. "Oops, my bad." Naruto laughed and kissed her on the forehead. "We really need to work on your temper." Guys, is it just my imagination or is the water beneath us glowing?" Sokka asked as the water around them was indeed glowing a luminescent blue. Naruto bends an ice barrier around them, keeping them from getting wet as a large spherical iceberg broke the surface. Once the water settles, he bends the barrier away. Inside the ice, two shadows can be seen. One is a large-looking creature. The other looks like a person with arrow tattoos on his head and hands in a meditative pose. "It's the Avatar," Naruto gasped. "What? Are you sure? How can you tell?" Katara asked in bewilderment. "I've been sensing something powerful since we got out this far. I guess Kitsune have been able to sense who the next Avatar is since the beginning," Naruto explained, bending an ice bridge between the raft and iceberg. "Like the Avatar cycle, one person from the Kitsune tribe is chosen to guide the Avatar. So it's my job to guide this one, the last airbender." "Oh sure, you take one look and suddenly it's the Avatar." "What if it's some sort of Fire Nation trap?" Sokka asked sarcastically. "Two reasons. One, you're an idiot, and two, the Fire Nation can't use waterbending, which is the only way to create a sphere of ice." Naruto deadpan slapping the back of Sokka's head. "I knew that," Sokka grumbled, grudgingly making his way across the ice bridge. "So do we waterbend him out of there or are you going to melt the ice?" Katara asked, following a step behind Naruto. "Well, if I'm right, he went into the Avatar state when he formed this sphere. So there's a lot of power being held behind that ice," Naruto explained, producing a small fireball in his hand. "Stand back." Taking a firebending stance, Naruto shot a stream of fire that lasted 5 seconds, but was enough to release a jet of air, starting a chain reaction. Finally finding an exit, the pressure inside cracks the ice from top to bottom, expelling a shaft of white-blue light into the sky. The light is so bright the trio are forced to cover their eyes. Miles away, Prince Zuko and Princess Azula, the exiled children of the Fire Lord, break apart from their sparring aboard their scout ship. Zuko's eyes narrow as he looks at the shaft of light. The badly scarred skin around his left eye pulls tight, but he ignores it as he watches the pillar slowly dissipate. Next to him, his sister Azula sighs. "Well, Zuzu, looks like your dream is finally happening." She taunts him, absently rubbing the left side of her neck. Zuko ignores her and turns towards their uncle, who had been watching them spar. "Uncle, do you realize what this means?" Iroh sighed from where he was sitting cross-legged at a low table drinking tea, playing with the tiles of his game. "What it means, Prince Zuko, is that I won't get to finish my game." "No, uncle, it means my search. My search is about to come to an end," Zuko said, ignoring Iroh's groan and Azula's snort. "That light came from a very powerful source. It has to be the Avatar. Or it's just the celestial lights. We've been down this path before, Prince Zuko. You know I don't want you to get too excited over this," Iroh advised, looking up at his nephew. "Now, please sit. Why don't you both enjoy a cup of calming jasmine tea?" Azula accepts and sits across from her uncle, but her brother explodes into anger. "I don't need any calming tea. What I need is to capture the Avatar." He spins around to face the bow. "Helmsman, head a course for that light." With Katara, Naruto and Sokka, the light no longer at blinding levels allows the group to uncover their eyes. Peeking from within Naruto's protective embrace, Katara stares in awe at the remaining light, swirling around the remains of the sphere. Hearing his betrothed's slight gasp, Naruto turns to see a bald boy in air nomad clothes passing out and sliding down the ice, coming to a stop in front of the trio. Sokka, being an idiot, pokes the boy in the head with the butt of his spear, only for Katara to push him away. "Stop it," she growls, kneeling to roll the boy onto his back. Slowly the boy's eyes start to open. Immediately he sees a vision of beauty in a fur coat. "I need to ask you something," he mumbles tiredly. "What?" Katara asks. "Please come closer," still mumbling. "What is it?" she asks, leaning in. Naruto's tail sweeps back and forth in agitation at what he thinks the boy's trying. Sokka just watches the scene suspiciously. Then a complete normal yet excited voice, the boy asks, "Will you go penguin sledding with me?" Sure, I guess," Katara replied, completely baffled as are Sokka and Naruto. "Why do I get the feeling this kid never wanted to be the Avatar?" Naruto pondered. Airbending himself on his feet, the boy looks around in confusion. "What's going on here? You tell us," Sokka demanded, pointing his spear at the boy. "How'd you get in the ice? And why aren't you frozen?" "I'm not sure," he answers, batting the spear away. Hearing a low groan, the boy quickly dashes up the side of the slope of the iceberg, over the lip and into a crater. The others scramble after him to see the boy land on a large furry animal. "Appa," he crows. "Are you alright?" he asks in concern. "Wake up, buddy." Leaning down from the beast's head, he lifts up one of Appa's eyes. Letting it close, he hops down to try and lift the bison's head without success. He keeps trying when the Appa suddenly raises his head and licks the boy with his large tongue. "You're okay." He laughs while clinging to Appa's head. "What the hell is that thing?" Sokka demands, brandishing his spear once more. "This is Appa. Has my flying bison," the boy answers, dropping back onto the snow. Sokka, of course, could be counted on to be an idiot, right? "And this is Katara, my flying sister, and Naruto, my flying brother-in-law," earning him another slap to the back of the head. "Would you stop that?" Seeing the bison's nose starting to twitch, Naruto grabs Katara and hid behind the ice slope while the boy ducks. Just as Appa sneezes green mucus all over Sokka. "Yo!" Sokka screams, trying to get rid of the snot by wiping himself in the snow. "Ugh, don't worry, it'll wash out." "So do you guys live around here?" the boy asked, his eyes suddenly widen at seeing Naruto's tail. "Oh wow, a kitsune." Naruto winces as the boy leaps around him and feels the boy grabbing at his tail. "Hey," he exclaimed, bopping the boy on the head. "Don't go grabbing my tail." "Sorry," the boy cringed. "And we're not telling where we live," Sokka said, looking at Katara and Naruto. "Did you see that crazy bolt of light? He was probably trying to signal the Fire Navy." Katara rolls her eyes at her brother's antics. "Oh yeah, sure has a spy for the Fire Navy. You can just tell by the evil look in his eye." All three turn to see the boy making an innocent face, his smile nearly as big as his head. Shaking her head, Katara steps forward. "The paranoid one is my brother, Sokka. Katara, and the kitsune is my betrothed, Naruto." The boy nods to each. He starts to say with an odd look on his face. The boy sneezes, shooting into the air. Coming back down, he lands right in front of Katara. "On," he sniffs, rubbing his nose. "You just sneezed and flew 10 feet in the air." Sokka gasps, with an incredulous look. "Really? It felt higher than that," Aang states. "Yep, Hess an airbender," Naruto confirms. "Giant beams of light, flying bison, airbenders, kitsunes. I think I've got midnight sun madness," Sokka mutters and turns to walk away. Going back to the village where stuff makes sense, only to realize he was on an iceberg with no canoe. "Well, if you guys are stuck, Appa and I can give you a lift," Aang offered, airbending himself onto Appa's head where the reins are tied to his horns. "Thanks, we'd love a ride," Katara says excitedly, ready to climb up to Appa's saddle, only to squeak in surprise as she was lifted off her feet by her betrothed. "Naruto, allow me," Naruto replied, leaping up to the saddle with Katara in his arms. "You coming, Sokka?" "Oh no, I am not getting on that fluffy snot monster," Sokka huffed. "Are you hoping some other kind of monster will come along and give you a ride home, before you freeze to death?" Katara asked, once she had been set down. Pouting at the unfairness of the situation, Sokka has no choice but to climb into Appa's saddle, where he sat at the back with his arms crossed. Naruto snorts at his behavior, while Katara is practically bouncing with excitement. "Okay, first time flyers, hold on tight." "Appa yip yip," Aang chants, snapping the reins. With a low growl, Appa flaps his tail, launching himself in the air with his legs spread out, only to belly flop into the water with a huge splash. Once settled, he starts swimming. "Come on, Appa, yip yip," Aang said, giving the reins another shake. "Wow, that was truly impressive. Why don't go to the moon next?" Sokka snorted. "Appa's just tired. A little rest and he'll be soaring through sky." "Yalsi," Aang replied, looking back and making soaring motions with his hand. After a minute of silence, Naruto notices that Aang has yet to stop staring at Katara. "Hey, Chromedome, you might want to stop staring at my betrothed." "Oh sorry," Aang winces at the underlying threat. "Did you have to be so mean to him?" Katara asked, frowning at Naruto's threat. "I guess I should have told you that kitsune males are very loyal, protective and territorial concerning their mates. Seeing another male trying to court her makes the male feel territorially threatened. It's not the same with Sokka because Hess your brother," Naruto explained. "So does that mean I can't go near other men?" she asked. "No, you can be around other men, as long as they don't try getting too familiar with you. But I can smell the pheromones men give off when they're attracted to a woman, and Aang's pheromones levels were of a male wanting to attract a mate, Naruto answered, hoping she would understand. I think I understand, she replied. Are there any other things I should know about? Mating with a kitsune means you're stuck with me until one of us dies. And when we do get married I'll have to mark you and my other wife, which will turn you both into kitsunes, he clarified. You mean I'll have fox ears and a tail as well? She exclaimed in excitement. Does that mean I'll be able to bend two other elements? That and kitsunes generally live for over 1,000 years. Aang added, butting into the conversation. I knew a kitsune who lived to see the whole avatar cycle before he died at the age of a 10. That's unbelievable. I can't imagine staying young while watching my friends and family die of old age, Katara said somberly. Katara, I know this is frightening, but I will be with you throughout the whole thing, Naruto said, trying to cheer her up. But first we need to survive this war and get married before you have to worry over living for 1,000 years. And I'm sorry I didn't tell you this before now, but I was too busy falling in love with you to remember. Did you just say you love me? She asked, tears forming at the corner of her eyes. I wouldn't say it if I didn't mean it, he replied softly, leaning in to kiss her, only to be tackled against the saddle, followed by a pair of lips pressing desperately against his. Oh come on, that's not something I want to see, Sokka complained, turning away from mushy scene while Aang just watched, cursing slowly through the southern water. The small Fire Nation ship carefully navigated its way through the icebergs. Sitting in her room dressed in her sleeping gown, exiled Princess Azula contemplated the course her life would have taken if she had become the firebender her father wanted. In all likelihood she would have become a tyrannical woman who used fear to control her subordinates. She would never have trusted anyone, believing she needed to be perfect in everything she did, or her father would be disappointed. She couldn't help but shudder at the thought of being such an evil person, not having any real friends and living as her father's pawn. It made her sick to her stomach to think she could have turned out like that if it weren't for a certain individual in her exile. Is everything alright, Princess Azula? Her uncle asked from the door. You seem troubled. Do you think I made the right decision in hiding him, uncle, instead of turning him over to my father? If I had, then I would be just what father wanted, a monster he could control, she asked somberly, tears welling in her eyes. Why couldn't he just love us like a real father should? That is not something I can give you the answer to, princess. My brother never had to face the trials I did as a general on the battlefield. This gave your grandfather the opportunity to ensnare you father to his way of thinking. Personally, I think you made the right choice in hiding the boy from your father, or you would have been driven insane by the lust for power. I know my brother's ambitions are wrong, and I am sure Zuko will see the truth eventually, Iroh answered, gently pushing Azula down in her bed. Now you both can shape your own destinies, and I believe that your destinies are not the same as what your father wanted. The question now is, what will you do if your paths cross? There is a law in the Kitsune tribe that the last male member of a clan must marry more than one woman. What will you do if he has chosen a woman from another nation? I don't care if he has. I just want to be with him, even if it means becoming an enemy of the Fire Nation. I'm willing to become nothing more than a servant to be with Naruto, Azula replied with conviction, curling herself into a ball, clutching a wooden carving of a fox around her neck in a tight fist. If you do it, I will be sad to see you leave us, but you must follow your heart to find happiness, Iroh consoled, stroking Azula's hair comfortingly. Now get some rest, my niece. Thank you for listening, uncle, she whispered, shifting to get comfortable under the covers. I am always willing to be there if you need to talk, he replied, making his way to the door. Pleasant dreams, Azula. Good night, uncle, she murmured, gradually loosing herself to sleep. Next morning, Southern Water Tribe. Naruto wasn't happy with the situation. Because of Aang's disappearance from the world 100 years ago, his people were slaughtered for not siding with the Fire Nation. And now the young Avatar was playing with the children of the tribe, when he should be learning waterbending from Katara. It was a rule of the Kitsune that they weren't allowed to teach the Avatar, only to guide them in keeping the balance in the world. But it seemed like that particular rule was unless now that Kitsunes were all but extinct. Making up his mind, he trudged his way over to where Katara and Aang were playing with the children. Katara, Naruto called out, we need to talk. About what? She asked. I want you start teaching Aang waterbending, he replied, earning a surprised look from his betrothed. Can't you teach me? I mean, Kitsune are supposed to be able to bend 3 elements, Aang asked, turning his attention away from the kid sliding down Appa's tail. Kitsune are forbidden from teaching the Avatar any form of bending, so Katara will be learning from me while she teaches you. Then we'll head to the North Pole to find you a real master in about a week, Naruto answered, frowning at the reluctant look on the boy's face. Do you even know how long you've been frozen? A few days, maybe a week, Aang guessed. Try 100 years, Katara said, much to his shock. That's impossible, Aang denied. Do I look 112 years old to you? It's the truth, Aang. You've been frozen for 100 years, and during that time the Fire Nation started a war against the other nations. They even wiped out the air nomads and the Kitsune tribe. You and Naruto are the last of your people, and the Fire Nation will soon win the war. If you don't help us, Katara pleaded, even as Aang slumped in the snow. 100 years. Aang mumbled, his disbelief curling into a ball. This can't be real. Aang, we don't have to for you to feel sorry for yourself. Katara has to start your waterbending lessons while I go hunting, Naruto says, heading away from the village. I get the feeling he doesn't like me very much, Aang sighed sadly. I think he believes that you're partially to blame for the slaughter of his people because of your disappearance. And I'm finding it hard not to agree with him. He told me how he watched his mother being raped by Fire Nation soldiers before they burned her alive. Even in the months Hess lived here, there have been more than a few nights when Hess had nightmares about it, Katara explained sorrowfully. Fortunately, he doesn't hate the entire Fire Nation, just those who arrogantly believe that fire is superior over the other nations. He even has a girlfriend in the Fire Nation. Girlfriend? But I thought you two were engaged, Aang asked, dumbfounded. We are, but Naruto's allowed to marry more than one woman. Because Hess the last of his clan, Katara blushed, wondering not for the first time what it would be like to share Naruto. Hours later, Naruto had just returned to the village, dragging several seal carcasses behind him when a flare suddenly shot into the sky. Following the smoke trail, he saw the flare had originated from a Fire Nation ship that had been beached by waterbenders over 60 years ago. Not picking up Katara or Aang's sense nearby, it didn't take a genius to figure out how the flare was fired. Even Naruto wasn't stupid enough to go lurking through that shipwreck. Naruto, where are Katara and the airbender? Sokka asked, having looked all over the village. As if you need to ask, Naruto replied, pointing at the descending flare. Aang must have gone on that wreck with her and accidentally set off the flare. I knew he was working for the Fire Nation, Sokka growled. You idiot. Aang didn't even know about the war until I told him. Do all strangers work for the Fire Nation in your world? Because you thought I was when I told you I could firebend, Naruto chastised, smacking him upside the head. I think I enjoy hitting him a bit too much. Fire Nation ship. Watching through a telescope from the top deck, Zuko watches Aang leaping from the beached ship to the ice below. The Avatar. Hess quite spry for his old age, but it doesn't matter. I've finally found him, Zuko says, looking around. He spots a small water tribe village and his hiding place. We'll finally be able to go home. If you say so, Zuzu, Azula sighed in boredom. Is that a kitsune? Zuko asks, only for the telescope to be ripped from his hands and shoved aside. Hey. Ignoring her brother's protests, Azula peers towards the village, hoping to catch a glimpse the kitsune, only to be disappointed. Whoever Zuko saw was gone. But something felt different. It was almost like she could feel her destiny was closer than ever. Handing the telescope back, she returns to her room, retrieving a chest with a handmade outfit she kept hidden from everyone, even her uncle. Like her wood-carved necklace, the clothing in the chest is more precious to her than gold. Village. Everyone in the village was tense. A dense fog had rolled in, obscuring any chance of seeing a Fire Nation ship approach. Sokka was crouching on the village wall, dressed in his warrior's armor and war paint, armed with a machete and his trusty boomerang. Aang had been banished from the village after he returned from being caught in the Fire Nation booby trap. Naruto was helping Katara round the children up near the exit, if they need to make a run for it, as they would be the ones to care for the kids if any of the adults perished. Katara noticed his ears suddenly go erect as his head snapped in the direction of the ocean. What do you hear? She asked, having a solid idea of the answer. Sounds like a scout ship. Shouldn't have more than 16 warriors. At least from what Azula told me, he answered, taking a sniff of the air. And they're headed this way. Just don't use your bending. Why not? I'm not going to let them bully us around, Katara seethed. And what happens when they capture us? They'll use everyone as leverage to make us surrender. And I'm not letting you go to a Fire Nation prison if I can help it, he argued. If they find out you're a waterbender and retreat, they'll come back with a larger force to capture you. And if they find out I'm a kitsune, they take me back to the Fire Lord's palace to be executed. Let's just see what they want before we do anything. You're right. I'm sorry. I just wanted you to see your training wasn't for nothing, she replied, feeling like a fool. It hasn't been for nothing, Katara. I have faith in your abilities, but you have to learn when and where to pick your fights. And only fight when you don't have another choice, he explained, place a kiss on her forehead. I just don't want to lose you before we get married. I love you. I love you too, she whispered, leaning up to capture his lips. The kids were either snickering or making gagging noises while up on the wall. Sokka face-palmed at their lovey-dovey behavior. It was the sound of loud machinery growing closer that reminded the couple of the imminent danger they were expecting. Turning back to the ocean, Sokka's jaw dropped as he saw the large black ship emerging from the fog. The breaking ice slowing it down, but not before it cut a path right through the village wall. Fortunately, Sokka manages to avoid getting killed as the falling ice and snow carries him to safety. For a moment the only sounds are steam escaping from hydraulics, then metal on metal, as the bowsprit folds down to make a gangplank. For a second time Sokka is almost killed, but he managed to jump back with inches to spare. Smelling the air, Naruto's ears folded back against his head, and his eyes went wide. I am in so much trouble right now. What is it? Katara asked. Azula's on that ship. He cringed, pulling a cloth over his face and a hood over his head to hide himself. Your other girlfriend. Why are you hiding yourself? She asked. Ask me later if I live through this, he replied, making sure his tail was hidden. As the steam clears, the village can see Zuko at the top of the gangplank with half a dozen soldiers with him. Naruto feels the need to run when he spots Azula over Zuko's shoulder, but for some reason his legs won't work. As they make their way down the gangplank, Sokka gets up and charges at Zuko with an adolescent war cry, making it halfway where Zuko disarms and trips the Water Tribe warrior into the snow, as if it were nothing. It would have been funny if the village wasn't been invaded. The Fire Nation soldiers spread out as Zuko steps forward, looking over the inhabitants with a critical gaze. Behind him, Azula locks on to the only other male in the village and the girl beside him. Where are you hiding him? Zuko demands. When he doesn't get an immediate response, he grabs Gran. He'd be about this age, master of all elements. Still getting no answer, he shoves Gran into Katara's arms. I know you're hiding him. Back at the wall, Sokka manages to free himself of the snow. Though his war paint has come off, he retrieves his weapon and charges Zuko with another battle cry. The scarred prince easily sidesteps the charge and flips Sokka onto his back, who rolls out of the way just in time to avoid a fire blast and sends his boomerang at Zuko, who narrowly avoids the weapon. A boy in the crowd throws Sokka's a spear. Show no fear. Catching the spear, Sokka charges Zuko a third time, only to have the tip splintered by the teen's wrist guards. Yanking the shaft from Sokka's grip, Zuko boinks the boy in the head enough to make him fall on his butt. A second later, the boomerang made its return, clunking Zuko in the back of his head, knocking his helmet off kilter. Unable to help herself, Azula giggles at her brother's misfortune, earning her a scowl. Well, if you haven't seen the old man my brother wants, have you perhaps seen a kitsune? She asked, stepping off the gangplank with a pack across her back. No. How about a fox then? What do you want with a kitsune? Katara inquires, playing dumb. I thought they were extinct. Aren't you pretty? I wouldn't have made that comment a year ago had I not gone against my father's command and keep a kitsune hidden from him. But I was changed, my views on the world dumped on their head. Am not the selfish power-hungry monster my father wanted. So I'll ask nicely. Please tell me if you've seen Naruto, Azula requested, surprising Zuko. Seeing the sincerity and longing in Azula's eyes, Katara turned and removed the furs covering the face of her fiancé, revealing a terrified Naruto. Oh shit, I'm a dead man, he thought. Naruto, Azula gasped. Hi Azula. Anything else he would have said was cut off as Azula gave him a stinging slap to the face. I may have deserved that. Yes, you did, she hissed, grabbing his parka and pulling his head down for a yearning kiss. She pulled away for air after a full minute. You have no idea how long I've been waiting to do that. So is this your Fire Nation girlfriend? Aang asked, popping out of nowhere, causing Azula to yelp in surprise. Where did you come from? Azula gasped. Aang, Katara, this is Azula. Azula, the bald kid, is Aang the Avatar, and this lovely lady beside me is my betrothed Katara, Naruto introduced, ignoring a spluttering Zuko. It's nice to finally meet you, Azula, Katara said, extending her hand, only to have Azula pull her in for a slow sensual kiss that had Zuko swallowing his tongue. I'm being kissed by a girl and I like it. Azula, Zuko roared, finally able to speak correctly. What in Anis name are you doing? That's what I want to know, Sokka added, unable to comprehend another girl kissing his sister. Finally coming up for air, Azula wrapped her arm around Katara's waist. I want you listen carefully, Zuzu, because I'm only going to say this once. I've fallen in love with Naruto of the Kitsune tribe, ever since I kept him hidden from father, and I don't plan on going back home with you. I intend on staying with Naruto and his betrothed, and nothing you say can make me change my mind. But father said he'd take us back if we capture the Avatar and the Kitsune. It's the only way for us to regain our honor. Zuko pleaded. Wake up, brother. Our father is a cruel power-hungry lunatic who would sacrifice us for his own twisted ambitions. He wanted me to become a monster he could manipulate to do his bidding. I won't allow myself to be used as his puppet, Azula countered. Call me a traitor if you want, but I'm staying, even if it means being Naruto's slave. So be it, but I'm not leaving without the key to regaining my honor. Zuko growled, slipping into a firebending stance. Surrender yourself, Avatar, or I'll burn this pathetic village down. I'll only agree to be your prisoner if you promise not to hurt anyone, Aang requested. Aang, don't do this, Katara pleaded. I have to. I'm the reason they came to your village, and I won't let anyone get hurt because of me. Aang replied, turning to Zuko. Do I have your word that you won't harm this village if I surrender? I'll do whatever it takes to restore my honor. So you have my word that no one will be harmed, my traitorous sister included. Zuko replied, slipping out of his stance. Take the Avatar into custody. Are we going to let him do this? Katara hissed at Naruto in a low voice as the Fire Nation troops surrounded Aang. If you haven't noticed, Aang didn't bring Appa into the village so Zuko doesn't know we can catch him. Once his ship is far enough away, we'll rescue Aang and head for the North Pole, Naruto whispered back. So only the girls and Sokka heard. Kitsunes are known for having cunning minds, Azula smirked, watching Zuko and his soldiers make their way back up the gangplank with Aang as their prisoner. I know you've only just met me, Katara, but I can assure you Zuzu won't risk killing Aang. Otherwise he'll have to begin his search all over again. Please be patient. Don't listen to her, Katara. I bet she's a spy for the Fire Nation, Sokka declared, getting another head slap. Stop slapping me. Why do you even do that? A slap to the face is an insult. Back of the head's a wake-up call. Something you seem need on a regular basis, Naruto deadpanned. And in case you weren't paying attention, let me spell this out for you. Azula was banished from the Fire Nation because she hid me from her father, which is a very serious crime. The only way for her to regain her position as princess is to capture me and hand me over to the Fire Nation. Instead, she tells her brother she'd rather be with me than go back to a life of luxury. Now what makes you think she'd still be working for the Fire Nation if she willingly gave up the throne? You'll have to forgive my brother. He thinks everyone in the Fire Nation is evil. Katara huffed at Sokka's ignorance. At least I have a girl my age to talk to now. No way. Katara, she's not staying with us. She's going back to the Fire Nation with her brother, Sokka grouched, pointing towards the ship. Too late, Naruto sighed. The sound of breaking ice filled the air as Zuko's ship backed away from the village. Wait, come back. You forgot your sister, Sokka hollered, chasing after the ship until he reached the edge of the ice. So this is the young woman my granddaughter will be sharing with Naruto. Gran spoke up, gaining Azula's attention. You're the first member of the Fire Nation I've met who doesn't have hostile intent. I can only apologize and ask your forgiveness for the trouble my nation has caused your village, Azula begged. There's no need for that. I know there are those in your nation who feel this war is a mistake and wish for a swift conclusion, whether it be victory or defeat. And I don't have any problems with you being my step-granddaughter, Gran said. Gran, how can you say that? Sokka screamed, earning a smack upside the head and a head slap. Would you stop that? No, but if it'll make you feel better, I'll restrain Azula once we've rescued Aang, Naruto replied, heading out of the village. Where are you going? Katara asked. To find Appa, so you should start packing while I'm gone, he answered, following the penguin tracks Aang had left behind. Fine, you go chase the stupid Avatar with your wives. I'm staying here to protect the village, Sokka shouted at Naruto's retreating form. Just ignore him, Azula. I have a feeling Gran will force him to come alone just to keep an eye on me, Katara suggested sweetly. I'm not too worried. My brother's just as stupid, Azula chuckled. Need any help packing? Zuko's ship. It's been 100 years since anyone's seen an airbender's staff. This will make an excellent gift for my father when he restores my honor. But I guess you wouldn't know what having a father is like being raised by monks. Take him to a holding cell and make sure he isn't harmed. Take this to my quarters, Zuko ordered, handing the staff to his uncle. Aren't you the least bit concerned that your sister is no longer with us? Iroh asked. She's nothing but a traitor, uncle. She had the chance to restore her honor by capturing the Kitsune. Instead, she chose to turn her back on father's generosity. Azula's a fool, Zuko scorned, heading back inside the ship. And you still do not see there are other ways to regain your honor? Iroh murmured sadly, handing the staff to another soldier. Miles to the south, Sokka, if you don't stop complaining I'm going to bend you into an iceberg with only your head free. Naruto growled at the sulking teen sitting at the back of Appa's saddle. Hey, I was just trying to get this flying bison to start flying. No need to bite my head off, Sokka grouched. Well, unlike you, I actually paid attention to what Aang said the first time. Naruto says, snapping the reins. Appa yip yip. Giving off a rumbled, Appa flops his tail as he starts treading water. With a mighty heave he launches himself and his passengers into the sky. I can't believe it. This is amazing. We're actually flying. Sokka screams in excitement, only to see the smug looks on everyone's face. I mean, big deal has flying. Why must we be cursed with idiotic brothers? Azula sighed in despair. Hey, Sokka objected indignantly. At least there are only two of them, Katara grinned. Good point, Azula huffed. Zuko's ship. Having escaped from his escorts, Aang is now running through the ship's quarters, trying to find his staff with his hands still tied behind his back. A quickly look behind shows Hess not being pursued, but he suddenly slams on the brakes when he sees 3 Fire Nation soldiers in his path with spears brandished. You guys haven't seen my staff around, have you? He asks, only to receive glares in return. Seeing Hell get no answer, Aang ran up and around the guards by airbending around the walls and ceiling. Flabbergasted, the soldiers can only watch his retreating form. Thanks anyway, he shouts over his shoulder. Turning another hallway he runs into another soldier who blasts a fireball at him. He manages to avoid the blast by jumping over the soldier's head and at the same time catch the ropes on the horns of the soldier's helmet. The ropes break and the soldier lands flat on his back. Now that his hands are free, Aang runs through the ship opening doors as he goes. The next door he opens reveals a snoring Iroh. Sorry, Aang whispers, closing the door softly behind him. Running past another door he skids to a halt and peers back inside. My staff. Entering the room to retrieve his staff, the door suddenly slams closed behind him, revealing a calm Zuko. It seems I underestimated you. After a tense pause, Zuko launched a barrage of fireballs at Aang, who barely dodges, yet manages to roll under the scarred teen getting behind. With Aang at his back, Zuko is unable to launch a direct attack. Growling in frustration, the exiled prince performs a fiery spin kick, forcing Aang to duck. Now face to face again, Aang weaves around each fireball by riding atop an air ball like a scooter. Another fireball causes Aang to lose control of the air scooter, landing him beneath a tapestry. Thinking quickly, he yanks the tapestry off the wall, wrapping it around Zuko to get a brief respite. Just as Aang is able to grab his staff, Zuko incinerates his bindings, retaking his stance with an enraged look on his face. You're not getting away that easily, Zuko hisses. After several moments of maneuvering, Aang airbends a mattress up off the floor and slams it and Zuko into a wall. Falling to the floor, Aang to airbends Zuko and the mattress against the ceiling. Once both settle on the floor, the prince looks up in anger, only to see Aang is gone. 10 minutes later, on Appa. Look, I can see Aang, Katara shouted, pointing at the deck of the ship. So was the bald guy chasing him? Sokka asked, earning a head slap from Azula. That would be my brother, Azula answered. Right, stupid question, he mumbled. Why aren't we heading down there? Katara questioned, perplexed at why they were simply circling the ship. Ask your boyfriend. Hess the one steering, Sokka hollered, pointing at the silent Naruto. Just so you all know, I can hear you every word you 3 say back there, Naruto replied, pointing at his fox ears. These aren't just for show, right? Sorry, Sokka slumped dejectedly. Before the quartet can do anything, they watch in horror as Zuko launched a fireball at Aang, causing the boy to fall overboard into the freezing water. For a few moments it seemed like all hope for the world had vanished when a violent whirling vortex rose up into the air with Aang at the center, his eyes and tattoos glowing. While the girls and Sokka were gobsmacked at the sight, Naruto had a look of confusion on his face. How did I know Aang would enter the Avatar state? He wondered, watching Aang wash Zuko off the deck with waterbending. Appa, take us down. What the heck was that? Sokka bellowed, nearly falling from Appa's saddle as they descended. Let's wait until we've rescued Aang before asking questions, shall we? Katara asked, unconsciously pressing herself against Azula. Landing gracefully, the gang clambered off Appa. Katara rushed to Aang's side as he collapsed from exhaustion, the glowing from the Avatar state subsiding. Hey guys, where's my staff? Aang asked tiredly. I got it, Naruto announced, racing to the port side of the ship. Reaching a gap in the railing, he scooped up the staff, only to have the opposite end grabbed by a furious Zuko. I won't let you take away the only change I have to regain my honor. Zuko growled, only to have Naruto turn around and fart in his face. Having only one hand to hold onto the anchor chain, Zuko had to release Aang's staff to cover his nose. You are such a fool. Your father only wants to use you as his pawn. He banished you because you deviated from the plans he had for you. Just like he banished Azula for hiding me in her room. Too bad you can't realize the truth, Naruto scoffed, sprinting back to Appa with Aang's staff in hand. Aang, get us out of here. Princess, Iroh shouted, stepping out on deck. I hope you have a safe journey and know that I am proud of you for following you, heart. Thank you for putting up with me, uncle. I'm sure we'll meet again soon, Azula shouted back, looking over towards her brother. Just remember, Zuzu, you're the only one who can restore your honor. You're a fool and a traitor, Azula. Don't expect me to forgive you when I regain the throne, Zuko growled as Appa took to the sky. You'll see. I'll capture the Avatar, and you'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Anything Azula might have said in return was prevented as Naruto pulled her into a comforting hug, while keeping her from looking back. With a few quick hand motions, a wall of ice sent Zuko's ship ramming into a large iceberg, making those on deck scramble to avoid falling ice. Once the ship settled, Zuko hauled himself on deck, glaring at the slowly shrinking speck in the sky. His chance at regaining his honor and the throne to the Fire Nation had slipped through his fingers. Now he had to hurry or more soldiers would be after the Avatar, making his task even more difficult. Why are you getting undressed? Sokka's scream sounding like an indignant squawk. Pausing with her trousers around her ankles, Azula gave a deadpan blink at such obvious question. I'm just taking off my armor and uniform, Sokka. Wouldn't exactly be a smart idea to be dressed in Fire Nation clothing unless I wanted to get captured by Earth Kingdom soldiers. So turning our betrothed into a drooling mess as he watches you undress is just a bonus, Katara jested, adjusting her new halter top over her chest. And just whom was eager to try on the new clothes and underwear? Naruto made it a request, while in full view of her brother, the Avatar, and said betrothed. Azula remarked, removing her tunic revealing her rust-colored halter bra and G-string. Not that I haven't enjoyed the show myself. No one's keeping them from looking away, and I could care less if they don't like how little I'm wearing. Naruto said Kitsune women don't dress as conservatively as the rest of the world, and I intend to keep that tradition going even if my new clothes leave me showing so much skin. Katara blushed, slipping into a pair of dark blue thigh-high leggings. I think you'll make an incredibly sexy Kitsune vixen, Azula purred, enveloping the dark-skinned girl in her arms, bringing their bodies intimately close. At least we'll be able to keep each other company while Naruto pursues other women to rebuild his clan. And Itsei really enjoys watching us press our half-naked bodies together. Well, let's give him something else to enjoy, Katara whispered, capturing Azula's lips in a slow sensual kiss that had both girls softly moaning. Spirits, I am completely bisexual, and I don't care what people say. This would be so much hotter if my sister wasn't kissing Azula, Sokka grumbled, turning away to look through their supplies, only to suddenly go limp as wet noodles. Naruto would have reacted to the sound of Sokka flopping to the ground, if not for several pinpricks in his neck causing him to lose all feeling in his body. Had he been able to move anything other than his eyes, he would have tried turning into his fox form. But whatever was causing his paralysis also inhibited his transformation. The only reason he didn't faceplant in the dirt was a pair of arms hugging him against a feminine body with a familiar scent. I'm glad you two were able to keep Naruto distracted. It's difficult sneaking up on a Kitsune even when we're downwind. Breaking their kiss, Katara and Azula quickly noticed the dozen young women dressed in ornate armored green kimonos, metal headdresses and white face paint surrounding their camp. Two of the women were hugging Aang and Sokka, while a third was holding a limp Naruto face first to her chest. Who are you and how do you know Naruto? Katara asked, unsure if she was upset that she was forced to stop kissing Azula, or how this new girl was holding Naruto against her. The name Suki, I'm the currently leader of the Kakashi warriors, and I suspect how I know Naruto is partly the reason you two were passionately making out. Something I wouldn't mind joining after we get more acquainted with each other. This is it for movie. Thanks for watching.